So I've cut all my fabrics. I've placed my paper on my fabric and I cut it out. So I went ahead to add 2 inches on the side for my allowance, then I add 1 inch for the length allowance. Okay, so I did that on the back fabric as well, and I ordered 0.25. I added 0.25 on the neckline of the back. Then this is the front part of my half length. I added 2 inches on the side as well and 1 inch on the length. Okay, so I added 0.5 inches as well on the side of my bustier. So this is the center front, and I spread it open and spread my paper open as well, and I determine where I want the opening on our shoulder to be, which is on the left hand side. So I place my paper on that opening side, and I went ahead to add 0.25 for my allowance. So I'm going to cut it out. So once I'm done doing that, I am going to add my stay. I'm going to gum my stay on it, and also gum my wording, and I'm going to cut my lining pieces as well. So I also went ahead to cut the lining on my skirt part, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to sew my dart separately on my fabric. Remember to mark your dart on the skirt, and I'm going to go ahead to also mark that same dart point. Remember when I notched it when I was cutting, so I went ahead to notch it on my lining. I'm going to draw that same dart line that I have on my fabric. I'm drawing it on my lining piece. Then I'm going to sew separately on my fabric, okay, and separately on my lining piece. Okay, so that is what I am trying to draw here. So after I was done doing this, I will do the second one, then I'll take it to my machine and I'll sew the darts on each of the piece, the lining and the main fabric separately. After that, I'm going to join the hem of the lining with the main fabric. So note that while I was cutting my lining, I subtracted 1.5 inches from the length of my main fabric. So the lining is shorter than my main fabric with 1.5 inches, which was the length allowance I added for my skirt part. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that. So I went ahead to sew my darts on my front part of the skirt, and I did the same thing on my lining piece and joined the hem. As I said earlier, I joined the lining with the dress on the hem, and I've also sewn my darts on my lining piece. So I'm going to be showing you that as well, so you can see. So the next thing I'm going to do is to bring in my half length of the front. You can see I've added my stay and my wording to the breast side. Okay, so I also join it and open iron them, so you see how it's looking already. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark out my actual length, actual half length. Okay, remember I added 1 inch allowance for my length, so I'm going to add the actual length of my half length. Okay, so after adding it, I'll mark on it, and once I'm done marking on it from one side from one side to the other side, I'm going to bring in the skirt part. So when I bring in the skirt part, I am going to align the darts of my half length with the darts of my skirt part. Okay, so note that I'm yet to attach the lining because I like joining the fabric separately and the lining separately. So that is what I'm trying to do here, to align the dart of my skirt part with the dart of my half length. Okay, so once I'm done aligning, then I'm going to pin them down, and after that I'll take them to my machine and join them separately, the skirt part of the fabric and the half length of the fabric. Then I'm going to do the same thing for my lining. I will join the skirt part of my lining and the half length part of my lining while making sure that the darts are aligned. So that same thing is what I'm going to do to the back. I'm going to join, after sewing the dart, my dart, waist dart at the back of my half length and the back skirt length, I am going to align them just as I did for the front, and I will join half length of my main fabric with skirt part of my main fabric separately on both of my back fabric. I will also join the lining piece separately. Okay, so do that same on your back piece. So you can see here I was done joining the half length, and I also joined the lining. So I use the lining at this point to turn the neckline of my fabric. So I want to show you how I joined it. You can see the half length of the lining with the skirt parts. You see they are joined separately, and you can see the half length of my main fabric and the skirt part of my main fabric. They are also joined separately. By so doing, I will not have any roughness showing on the half length from the inside. Okay, I like doing this so that the rough side of this joining will be well concealed on the inside. Okay, so that's just the reason for this, and it make the fabric to also relax. Okay, so I am going to bring in my back, and I've gone ahead to join the back as well. So I'm going to bring it out and show you as well. So this is my back part. You notice, as I said earlier, I joined the half length of the fabric with the skirt part of the fabric separately. I joined the half length of the lining and the skirt part of lining separately. Then after that, I use the lining to turn the neck and the zipper allowance of the main fabric. You can see how I joined them separately. This is the lining part, and the first one I showed was the main fabric part. So it's a very nice way of concealing the rough edges. So I've also ironed them. So this is the second part. Okay, so this is alternative to inseam that I love using, and it's always come out well. So you see the joining part not looking rough in any way, it's looking very neat. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to sew my zipper allowance with loose stitch. So I'm going to, from the neckline, sew where I want my zipper to stop with loose stitch, because I'm going to lose it later to attach my zipper. So then from where my zipper will stop, I will sew with main stitch. Okay, I'll back stitch very well and sew with main stitch to where our overlapping stop. Okay, the starting point of our overlapping, sorry. Then when I reach this point, I'll take it down this way. Okay, I hope you understand what I am trying to explain. I'll take it this way. So I'll go over to my machine and do that. After doing it, I will join the shoulder of the back with the shoulder of the neck. The front shoulder and the back shoulder, I'll join them together. Okay, so go ahead and measure what you have on the shoulder side, on the other side of the front shoulder. Okay, the shoulder of the front. Like for example, if you have 4 inches, okay, or 4.5, so make sure that you measure that same 4.5 on the front part. Remember the front part, because of the stylish opening on the neckline, you need to measure it and make sure that you have that same inches you have on the other side to the second part. So I'll go ahead and join them and bring them. So at this point, I was done joining the shoulders as I mentioned earlier, and I also closed my zipper with loose stitch just as I stated earlier. Okay, so and the shoulder line has been joined. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is to measure our armhole. I'm going to take the measurement of our armhole. So remember, our armhole is folded into the back armhole and the front armhole. So when I measure it, whatever I get, I'm going to multiply it by 2. Okay, so meaning that the sleeve should also be folded into 2, just as we have our fabric folded into 2, the armhole side. Okay, so I'm going to measure it, and after that I'll get our paper that we're going to use and draft our sleeve. So I have my basic sleeve here, and I'm going to divide it into three. So I'm going to mark on the 1/3 of the length of the sleeve. Okay, so this is a full length of what I have here is the full length of my sleeve. So after dividing it, I'm going to divide my sleeve into four. Okay, then I'm going to slash. Okay, so I'm going to be slashing on it. So note that this sleeve is folded into two. So I've divided the upper part into four, and I'll also divide the lower part into four as well. Okay, so make sure you have the same number you have at the upper part, have it at the sleeve side. So that's what I'm actually trying to do here. So I'm going to connect them with my ruler into a straight line. So the line I made at the upper part is where I want the slashing to stop. Okay, I don't want the flay to don't want all the parts of the sleeve to have the flay. So that's why I divided the sleeve into three, and I mark on the 1/3. I'm connecting it from down to the where I marked, so that is where my slashing is going to stop. I hope you understand what I'm trying to explain. So I'm going to number them, and after numbering them, I'm going to slash them and spread them. So I was done slashing, and this is what we have. So I'm going to bring in the fabric I'm using for the sleeve, and I'm going to spread it on it. So you can actually determine how wide, okay, how flayed you want it to be, and that will influence the spreading, okay, the inches you use for your spread. So it basically means that you can use 2 inches to spread, 3 inches, 4 inches, 1.5. So I've gone ahead to pin it down on my main fabric, and I also spread it just as I earlier noted. So I actually use 1.75 for my spread, as you can see. So you can use 1.5, 2 inches. It's all about your personal preference. So after spreading, I added 0.75 inches at the hem, okay, for joining with my lining piece, and 0.5 inches for joining with my main body. So I'm just going to go ahead to trim it off and the excess. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to unpin it, and after unpinning it, I'm going to show you what we have. So this is the beautiful sleeve we have after spreading. Okay, so I'm just going to indicate the back, the wrong side, differentiate it from the right side. So this is what we have, and I'm going to cut on my lining piece, but before I do that, I want to give it a little curve at the hem. Okay, I want it to have a little curve at the hem. So if you like, you can go ahead and cut your lining this way and attach it, but I just want to give it a little style at the hem. So I'm measuring 3 inches, okay, and sorry, 3.5 inches. That is what I'll measure here, and I'm going to connect it to the down part. So after connecting it, I'm going to cut it out, okay, 0.5 inches away from the main line, so that I can use that to join it, okay. So I'm going to cut it out right now, and once I'm done cutting out, I'm going to cut out on my lining piece. So I'm going to make my lining piece 1 inch shorter than the main fabric, meaning that if the length of your sleeve is 20 inches, then your lining piece should be 19 inches, especially if you use 1 inch for your allowance. So I've cut out my lining piece, and I'm going to go ahead to use it to turn the side of my fabric. And after doing that, I went ahead to attach it to my main bodice and join the side of my dress as well. So this is the look of our dress. I also attach my zipper at the back. This is how our dress came out, and I love everything about this dress. Like, I love it so much. Everything came out very fine, the shape looking very fine, the hip contour just gave it the best look ever.